Hello, this is Mad Cat, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today is another edition of Mad Cat Smash Feminism. Rah! 34. And remember, I haven't done one of these in a while. I guess I forgot to do them. Oh well, I'll remember next time. Well, no. I know. Hold on, let me mute this real quick. And remember, feminism, all good things come to an end, especially when we talk about Title IX. All right, so yeah, it's kind of a theme for today. So I apologize for not doing the video on my normal scheduled day yesterday, even though I scheduled it for that day. This will probably be my last broadcast in January, and I probably won't be returning until February. So I'm going to be moving this month. Actually, it's going to be a week from today. I'm going to be on a bus for like 2 days straight and some hours, and I'll be in Philadelphia. And then I'm going to start my new life, but of course, I do need to adjust to being in a new place. And I've got to start my writing career and trying to make the most of it. But I plan to start doing videos sometime in February. Hopefully, I am not gone for too long of a time because I really do enjoy doing these videos and the comments when they come in. So let's go ahead and get started today. Scroll. Okay, lawsuit. White students bragged about sex with black athletes, then got them expelled for rape. Okay, so two black athletes have sued a private college in Ohio, the University of Findlay, for expelling them without even a semblance of due process after they are accused of rape by a white female student. The lawsuit, filed by Justin Brown and Alfonso Beatty, characterized Findlay's investigation of the dispute, which was completed in just 24 hours. Yeah, that's surprising too, as a sham. The university failed to interview witnesses who could have corroborated. One of these days I'll learn to speak. Corroborated? Let's assume that I got that word correctly. Brown and Beatty's accounts threatened other witnesses for failing to back up the accuser, and most damningly, ignored considerable evidence that the accusers did not merely consent to sex. She bragged about it later, according to this lawsuit. You'll have to forgive me. I'm a bit tired today with this move. I'm just like up at strange hours, and I've been traveling around a lot today. So my mind's a bit out of it right now. But then what else is new? Well, these kinds of lawsuits often raise the specter of gender bias against male students. Brown and Beatty's lawsuit explicitly alleges racial bias. Here's what's happening. Brown and Beatty were friends and sexual partners of the accuser, a white female identified as MK. On the night of September 21st, 2014, MK had sex with them separately, and while they were in the same room, in the house that the two men shared with two other black male students. According to the lawsuit, the housemates were present in the common area and could hear some of the sexual activities. At least two other white female students were also present. All agreed that MK consented to sex and could at times hear her consenting to sex. Brown and Beatty maintained that MK was not just a willing participant, but the prime initiator of their various encounters that night. MK went home the next morning and bore neither of the alleged perpetrators any ill will. According to the lawsuit, she explicitly told another student, JF, that the sex was consensual. The lawsuit describes her as bragging about it. She also bragged about the encounter to another white female who lived on her floor. And here's a good, important what the fuck moment. 10 days after the encounter, MK filed a sexual assault claim with the university. Findlay administrators interviewed Brown and Beatty without telling them the specific nature of the charges against them, but did not speak to their black housemates because they merely presumed these men would defend their friends. Administrators did speak with the white women who were present, an example of racial discrimination according to the lawsuit, and then spectacularly punished them when they disputed MK's version of the events. One of the women lost her work-study job, and the other was threatened with expulsion, according to the lawsuit. Now, I'm going to discuss this in greater detail when I get done with this, but that is horrible. I mean, yeah, these colleges and these feminists are trying to maintain this narrative, but they're going to punish women who speak against this narrative. Oh, she claimed rape. You have to be lying. You're protecting them. We're going to punish you for speaking against this narrative that we're trying to paint. These men are horrible, so you have to say they're horrible or we're going to punish you. Oh my fucking God. Let me check on the old Chatteroony here. No one agreed with MK's claims except MK herself. On the contrary, all relevant witnesses sided with Brown and Beatty. They were expelled 24 hours after MK filed the claim. There was no hearing, just a letter in the mail. MK's white neighbor, who had referred to the encounter as consensual, tried to speak up, but was rebuffed by her residential advisor. Well, there's this part right here. Basically, the school emailed every authority figure within the school saying that these two people raped and the case is closed. So when she got told by her residential advisor, don't do it, it's because they had already gotten the email that these two were guilty. The male friend who had also overheard bragging emailed officials to inform them. These appeals fell on deaf ears. Findlay maintains that it did nothing wrong and is prepared to vigorously defend its adjudication process. Oh, sure, I can say that one, but not the other one. The university conducted this process with integrity and fairness, spokesperson Joy Shaw told the Washington Examiner. Yeah, if you treat men less than human, then anything you do to them is fair, right? Keep in mind that the lawsuit is only one side of the story. Findlay may dispute the details, but it's impossible to imagine how. Assuming that the lawsuit does not misrepresent the account of more than a half a dozen people of all races and gender, there is not one shred of evidence to support MK's claim and mountains of evidence to support Brown and Beatty's. Brown and Beatty are suing Findlay on counts of racial discrimination, gender discrimination, abridgment of due process, and breach of contract. It will be interesting to see if racial discrimination aspect gets much traction in the media. Some due process advocates who follow these cases, including Harvard University law professor Jeannie Suk. I'm sorry, that's just a horrible name. Jeannie Suk. I mean, it's great that you're involved in all of this, but that's just a horrible name. Believe black male students are more likely to be falsely accused of sexual assault. The two high-profile accusations of the sexual assault in the Hunting Ground film were made against black students Brandon Winston and Jamie? Jamie's? I don't know how to say that. Jameis Winston, no relation. So, okay, let's talk about this issue and let's look at that picture there. So here's our basic problem is we're seeing a lot of schools just immediately believe a woman because, hey, why would a woman lie about rape? And that's the common turn of phrase that I hear from feminists all the time. Why would anyone lie about rape? Well, we see time and time again that women will lie about rape. Now, not all women who claim that they are raped are lying about it. Many are telling the truth. But it comes to question, she has no proof whatsoever. In this modern day and age, there really isn't need for proof. Now, the problem with this specific case is it an issue of racism or sexism or both? And unfortunately, this is going to be a hard one to tell. Because you got cases that you got precedents that it could be an issue of racism, it could be an issue of sexism, or a combination of the two. More often than not, this is an issue of sexism. But because it involves a minority, it's going to turn into an issue of racism. Because, they only spoke basically to women, and basically ignored anyone. Well, the women that they spoke to were white. And see, this is where I think this is more of an issue that they're men and not necessarily that they're black men. Because they spoke to a guy, they didn't mention the race of the guy. He could have been white. And, sometimes they'll leave that kind of detail out because these writers here are trying to paint a narrative. Hopefully they're not, and it's just not known what the race of this guy is. But let's say, for example, that he's white. Well, if that's the case, if he's white, then it is a race issue. Well, no, actually, it's not still even a race issue then because they didn't bother listening to him. He sent an email and it was ignored. Never mind. But see, we can't ever truly know if this was an issue of race or sexism. Because in most cases, it is an issue of sexism. They didn't talk to the male friends, not because they were black, but because they were friends and friends would defend friends. But they did talk to two females. In fact, it seems like the only people that they listened to were females. And I don't think race was important at all. Unfortunately, it is going to be brought up, and maybe it should. Maybe it should be brought up, but I feel that the wrong focus, this will have the wrong focus, because I don't think racism was exhibited in this. I think it was just sexism. You're a man, a woman says you raped her, you're automatically guilty, as we've seen in many other schools. And you may say that I'm racist because I'm a white guy and I simply don't understand the life of a black man. But given that this is happening to many other schools, I'm more likely to believe that it was because of what's between their legs than the color of their skin. But they're free to go ahead and pursue the racial aspect of this, and maybe this will get more national media attention. However, if they win on the basis that it was racism and not sexism, I fear it won't really help any of the other men who are facing problems in colleges across the United States. Now, I can't blame them for believing that it is racism, but I don't think it is. More than that, they're not the only ones who got punished. Okay? white people also got punished. They're like, well, they only talk to white people instead of black people. That's racist. Well, no, the problem is you weren't the only one who got punished for it. 2 white women who were there got threatened with expulsion and lost a job, a work-study job, because they didn't agree with the narrative set by the accuser. So, but even if, no matter what the actual issue is, someone is being falsely accused of rape, a man is being falsely accused of rape, and once again, we're seeing that schools, Title IX is ruling out, saying, no, this woman said you did it, bam, you are guilty, get out of our fucking school. And I've got to own it to Justin Brown and Afalzo Beatty. I don't fully agree with the circumstances in which you're suing, but kudos on suing the school and getting them to be responsible, because they did drop the ball. They didn't listen to the evidence that there were several people that could back up your claim, that could testify that you did not commit rape. Several people can. And it's amazing that schools today, colleges today, will do everything they can to appease a woman simply because she has a motherfucking vagina, and they're too scared that if they don't do something, they're going to get sued. But 24 fucking hours, 24 hours was all the decision time they needed to tell these men, you're out. That was all the investigation they needed. I mean, some of these other colleges, yeah, they went ahead and skipped the whole due process thing, but they still investigated. They still took several months to come to a conclusion, not 24 hours. This is ridiculous, and this is what I'm fearing is going to start happening more and more often, that colleges are going to come to a quick resolution, hoping to make the matter go away quickly. Well, guess what, colleges? Men are not going to take this lying down. We're going to get in your face and make you responsible for your actions. So racism, sexism, whatever happened here, kudos to these 2 men for standing up to the school system and saying, no, you fucked up. No comments yet. That's sad. All right, so let's now go to Senator James Lankford takes on federal education officials for threatening letters to college universities. U.S. Senator James Lankford is accusing the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights of overstepping its authority in confronting the issues of bullying, harassment, and sexual violence on college campuses and becoming the bully itself. Sorry, my throat's getting a little scratchy, but at least I'm awake now. God, this is better than coffee. Of course, I am drinking an energy drink right now, but I just feel my blood pumping. Lankford, Republican, Oklahoma, is the chairman of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Subcommittee on Regulatory Affairs and Federal Management. Try to say that 3 times fast. And since September has been examining whether the Education Department and other federal agencies have been sidestepping the required regulatory process through the improper use of guidance letters. Bum, bum, bum. It's kind of strange that I'm kind of supporting someone of Homeland Security. I've always been a little bit against Homeland Security, but, you know, it looks like maybe it's actually doing its job. So I guess that's kudos there. I mean, they do good for the government, but, you know, I'm still skeptical. In a letter being sent Thursday, Langford said he wants the education department to approve its new mandates for sweeping policy changes on bullying, harassment, and sexual violence at the nation's colleges and universities are actually rooted in the federal statutes and regulations. Until then, he is asking that the secretary, excuse me, that the Secretary of Education, John King, ensues that colleges and universities that do not adhere to the new policy mandates not be subjected to inquiry, investigation, and adverse findings of rescission of federal funding as a consequence. We'll talk a little bit more about what all of that means. I condemn all types of sex-based discrimination, including sexual violence and harassment, in the strongest possible terms, but believe that the Dear Colleague letters advance substantive, would you believe I'm a writer, and binding regulatory policies that are effectively regulations, Langford said, referring to 3 guidance letters sent to institutions of higher education from October 2010 to April 2011. Langford said that federal education officials have claimed authority over these matters at large under Title IX, comprehensive federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded education program or activity. But he said new policy mandates by the educational department actually expand the scope of Title IX to infringe on constitutionally protected behaviors and practices. Let me go on further before I take a moment to stop and explain this a bit. Langford even pointed out that Harvard University has found itself facing grave concerns about due process from 28 members of its own law school facility since acquiescing, sure, I can say that word, to the Office for Civil Rights Policy, and also that 16 facility members from the law school at the University of Pennsylvania, ooh, I'm moving there, well, not to the university, to Pennsylvania, excuse me, detailed their legal concerns about the policy in the Wall Street Journal. Further, Langford said that any such mandate must first undergo the more transparent but lengthy Administrative Procedure Act adoption process for all binding rules or regulations. That process would require opportunities for input from institutions for higher education and the public in general. Now, you might be asking, what is the Administrative Procedure Act? Well, I'm glad you asked that because I actually looked it up. The Administrative Procedure Act, enacted in June 11th, 1946, is the United States federal statute that governs the way in which administrative agencies of the federal government of the United States may propose and establish regulations. So, what this James Langford is basically saying is that let me get the exact thing that it is. The Department of Education Office for Civil Rights was basically, now, well, they were given a mandate by the White House that they needed to expand Title IX to include sexual harassments and any other sexual violations. Rather than go through the proper procedure of setting this up, as Langford is saying, through this Administrative Procedures Act, they instead sent out letters and saying to all of these universities, hey, you need to start making all of these changes, and if you don't, we're going to refuse funding to you. And that's basically the picture that Langford is painting here. Because had they gone through the proper procedure process, it could have been discussed, by people of, well, the general public and also major players within the universities to discuss the proper way of going through this. The educational department bypassed this procedure, as he's about to explain in just a moment. Now, I couldn't really find the specific letter, but oh shoot, I don't have it. Never mind. I did have it a moment ago. Let me go ahead and continue. Perhaps OCR, Office for Civil Rights, sought to avoid notice and comment procedures, fearing that educational officials and other interested groups would have voiced substantial objections to the letter policies if given an opportunity. Yeah, they probably would have objected. If so, this fear would have been well placed. Legal scholars and academics across the political spectrum have decried the Dear Colleagues letters as offensive to the First and Fourth Amendment protections. Protections that Title IX and its implementing regulations alone have never been said to imperil. Title IX is not supposed to be doing this. Title IX was just to make sure that enough women in colleges got opportunities that were given to men. It has then since been misused in many ways, and this is one of them. And by bypassing the Administrative Procedure Act, they did so just so no one could object to it. Let's go ahead and continue further. Langford letter is quite pointed in its implication that higher education officials are intimidated to comply to the satisfaction of the Office for Civil Rights or face a variety of consequences. He wrote, multiple universities have reported been subject to OCR's coercive voluntary resolution agreement practices and offered the example of Tufts University in Boston area, which faced a threat of having federal funding terminated in a dispute with OCR over its handling of sexual harassment or assault complaints. Of course, TAF is one but example, but if you disagree with them, then they'll cut off your funding to try to pressure you into colleges to do what they want them to do. The staffer, this newspaper asked the staffer if any Oklahoma-based colleges were on that list, and they said the staffer said that one of the reasons the correct congressional subcommittee that Langford chairs is pursuing the matter all the way up to the U.S. Secretary of Education is because individual colleges and universities faces a David versus Goliath proposition. The subcommittee found that the Department of Labor acknowledged certain things, and in many cases, laborers just get sued, and the courts often say you have to regulate this first. But the Department of Education is a different story. The Department of Education knows that they are not going to get sued. Colleges and universities are so afraid of the Department of Education. When we meet with them, they simply say, don't use our names. We don't want to alienate the department or risk losing our federal funding. The staffer added, the Department of Education is one of the biggest abusers of this, period. And both left and right are essentially up in arms. If Harvard is afraid of the Department of Education, you know there's a problem. Doreen Note, a spokeswoman for the U.S. Department of Education, did... Oh, sorry. Where's that phone? Oh, here it is. Sorry for the... Ooh, Prescott. Doreen Note, a spokeswoman for the U.S. Department of Education, did not respond to the Tulsa World's question or invitation to comment on Wednesday, but in a Washington Post report Thursday, Note acknowledged receipt of Langford's letter and said department officials look forward to responding in the future. Now, we do know that this new mandate did come from the White House, telling the Department of Education that they need to start including these things and start reducing the amount of rape on college campuses. We do know that the White House works based on faulty statistics. That has been proven by many people, by crime reports, has been reported on by even Christina Hoff Sommers herself. And even a recent report that came out in 2015 that the amount of rape that happens on college campus is a lot more rare than the 1 in 4 statistics that feminists are always quoting. But this was something that the White House was working on by evident of President Obama's speech saying, that, 1 in 5 women and blah, blah, blah. So the White House basically made a mandate to the Department of Education, hey, you need to start dealing with this issue because we need this to start going down. Now, we don't know at this time whether or not the White House basically told them, go ahead and bypass this process, or if the Department of Education took it upon themselves to do it. Most likely, Department of Education took it upon themselves to go ahead and do this, although there could be strong suggestion from the White House. And so, instead of following proper procedures and making policy changes, they went ahead and did what's called a Dear Colleague letter and sent it to all the universities and said that you need to start enforcing, basically creating kangaroo courts and having civil rights coordinators and whatnot. And in the report that I read, it said that bigger schools should have more than one for each building. So this looks like it's a good thing. Now, I don't know what's going to come of this, but it's good that someone is starting to ask questions. Maybe this is in reflection of the fact that a lot of lawsuits are starting to come forward. Although there really wasn't a whole lot in 2014 when he started, but certainly now there are. But it's also suggesting that there are many college universities that are basically having their hands tied and that they can't do anything but comply, that they're being bullied into these policy changes. Because if they don't, then they're SOL. It's like, well, we'll remove your funding then. Okay, we'll do it. Just don't remove our funding because we need that funding. So, we hold a lot of contempt for the college higher ups. And certainly we should hold contempt for these officers of the Department of Education for civil rights or whatever, who just basically are going around and, telling everyone that, oh, if a woman says a man raped her, then we have to believe her. But it seems like colleges themselves don't like this at all. And that's a very promising fact. We've certainly talked about the University of Harvard talking about the issues of Title IX in the past, or at least I hope we have. So this is very good. And I'm hoping that, in the near future, we're going to see some reforms on this. We're going to see people take a step back and maybe clip the wings of the Department of Education and say, you need to stop bullying people around. You need to stop bullying major universities. And that Title IX does not cover this. And if you want it to, then you have to go through the proper procedure to do so. I can't help but wonder if there's a feminist at the top of the U.S. Department of Education. And they think that they're somehow above the rules because of Pussy Pass. That's just the thought that I'm having. But this is very good right here. I'm very happy that someone's looking into this. And it kind of opens up my eyes to the process a little bit more. So when I hear about a college expelling a student, I know just a little bit more now that they're doing so because they're being coerced to do so, and not so much that they want to do so. And it's unfortunate that they're getting sued, but unfortunately, they can't exactly sue the U.S. Department of Education because there's no proof that the U.S. Department of Education, well, I don't think there's any real precedence that anyone can really set that the U.S. Department of Education is directly responsible, even though they are indirectly responsible. So if it takes some lawsuits against colleges for the U.S. government to wake up and say, hey, maybe the U.S. Department of Education shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we need to step in and fix this problem before it gets much worse. But the problem is now is that the feminists have tasted blood. They now gotten things their way. Well, not now, but they're starting to get things more their way. More of, oh, well, if I claim I was raped, then I'm automatically going to get believed. And people are going to get expelled, just like the two men that we saw in the last article. Within 24 hours, they were expelled. You call that a fucking rape culture? They weren't even believed. No one was believed except the woman who claimed she got raped, and her supposed rapists got expelled within 24 hours of the investigation. Now, could it be that they were coerced into doing this? Yes, but I still hold the school in contempt for doing it within 24 hours. If they had done a couple of months of investigation, gotten all sides, and still made the decision that they did, I could then hold a little bit of sympathy for them that maybe, just maybe, they were coerced into this and they didn't really have a choice on what to do. However, they didn't even give the pretense of an investigation. They pretty much made up their mind the moment that woman came into their office and said, these two black guys raped me. Oh, okay, we're going to expel them, but we're going to delay it for 24 hours just to make it look like we're doing something. But don't you worry, Missy, we're going to expel them and you're going to feel safe. We don't even need to know if you're telling the truth or not. We'll just assume you are. That gets rid of them and everyone's happy. So I'm hoping that something good happens from this. I'm hoping that we get some restrictions on Title IX. I'm hoping we get some restrictions on the Department of Education, and that the Department of Education is held in contempt for bypassing the process and regulating procedures to be done at universities. Probably won't happen, but one can hope. Corvo. Corvo? Oh, goddamn, rock on. Just a little. Absolute garbage. Scary bastards. I do try to read the comments. But yeah, thank you for jumping on the channel here, and let's go ahead and move on to our last story of the day. Once a month, my son takes me on a date. Mom's Facebook post goes viral. A young mother says she is teaching her son how to treat a woman right, and her Facebook post about it has gone viral. Nicole Paulon, I thought that's a weird way to spell Nicole. 2 K's in there? Okay. Friday night, she posted about a dinner date between she and her 6-year-old son. More than 2.7 million people have liked her story. So let's get a preview of her story here. Once a month, let me do my female voice. I haven't done that in a while. Once a month, my 6-year-old son takes me out on a dinner date. He opens the door for me and pulls out my chair, talking about his day and asks me how mine was. Pays the bill with money he earns by doing chores and even tips the waiter and waitress. By doing this, I am teaching him how to treat a lady and how to take her on a proper date. How to show her that how to show that he respects the women he loves. Right now, that would be mommy. We put our phone and iPad away, except to take this photo and sit and talk to each other about our days, things we want to do, etc. I'm teaching him proper table manners, and it is rude to sit on your phone on a date with your mom with anyone else. He learns the value of money and how to manage it. He learns how to do math as we add up what we have, what we want, and make sure we have 15% of it to leave a tip. Yes, he's young, but I believe this is something he should learn now. Believe me, I'm holding back my contempt for this. I'll be discussing it in a moment. It's never too early to teach your child how to properly respect others, especially women. As a woman who's been abused and treated like crap in the past, it's extremely important to me that I teach my son how to show respect. Many men these days have no idea how to treat women or how to take them on a nice date. It's nice to know my son won't be one of them. Some people have criticized Pauline for making her son pay for the dinner, but she had an answer for that too. He enjoys doing it. It makes him happy. I would never force him to do something he didn't want to do. He prefers to spend his money doing something special with me than to spend money on toys. He already has his game station, toys, and things he wants. Really? You listen to him about his day and you don't know what his game station is called? That's a little interesting. He's very thrifty with his money and he refuses to spend on things he thinks he won't really use. Yeah, because I'm sure he's mature enough to really understand that concept. I give him extra money to be able to do this. Ha 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 ha. Having a special day for just us two is something he truly cherishes and looks forward to, as well as using his money to pay the bills. Why am I thinking of the film Psycho when hearing this story? Yeah, I'm thinking kind of the same thing. Jesus Christ, this is emotional incest shit. This is not normal. Good God, she is projecting. Abuse doesn't have to be physical for damn sure. Yeah, you're correct on that, and I'm going to address that in just a moment. Well, actually, I guess I'll address it now. I'm done with this a little bit. So, yeah, I do think this is borderline abuse. Now, I'm not a father, and I haven't been the age 6 for a very long time. I'm one of those people that grew up over time, unlike feminists who still are the age 6. The first thing I want to point out with this is reverse the genders, okay? If this was a man or a father taking out his 6-year-old daughter on a date and treating her like a date, you better believe there would be a lot of people with issues with this. Like, oh, this is bad. This is incestuous. He's a pedophile. He's trying to teach his daughter how to fit within a certain gender stereotypical role, you know, and things like that. But when it's a mother doing it with her son, that's perfectly okay. Oh, it's cute. It's so lovely. And no, it's not. So what are my thoughts on this? Well, I do think she's projecting because she does talk about the abuse that she's received from men and how she's hoping to teach her son not to exhibit these behaviors. She goes on to say that, he pulls out the chair for her. He talks about his day, asks her about her day, pays the bill, tips the waiter, and all of that. Now, many of that stuff a child wouldn't know to do on their own. So the mother is teaching him to do these things. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not a father. And I asked a friend of mine who is about this story and what he thought about it. Now, his response to it was, well, it's actually perfectly normal for a child to want to spend money on their parent. Okay. Now, in my family, it really didn't happen. Anytime I were to do something like that, it would have been like seen as an insult, which shows you how fucked up my family life was. Unless it was like a birthday present or a Christmas gift. But to do it in general was seen as a slap in the face to them. But to him, he was saying that, his children will sometimes buy him random stuff. And yeah, he thinks it's all sweet. The problem that he had was when she's talking about how she's teaching him how to treat a woman and how sexist it is. Because for him as a parent, because he has 2 boys and 1 girl, he's not teaching them how to treat a specific gender. He's teaching them how to treat people as a whole. But the problem I have with this further is that she's talking about going on a date with him and teaching him how to date a woman. I mean, if he was 14 years old, maybe I could understand that. But at 6 years old, no. And the thing is we live in a very social justice warrior world. And by the time, and when he gets older and starts exhibiting these behaviors on girls his own age, either these girls are going to have a major problem with him doing it, or the parents of these girls are going to have a problem with him doing it, and he won't know any better because his mother told him, this is what you do for girls. You should be teaching him how to interact with girls his own age. Now, if he wants to go ahead and, spend money on his mother, okay, go for it. I don't exactly buy that he's a thrifty shopper and he doesn't buy things he doesn't think he needs. That's a little bit harder for me to swallow, okay? Because he's 6 years old. He doesn't quite really understand the concept of things like that unless he's nudged in that direction of, do you think you really need that? Do you think maybe you don't need that? And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but don't make it sound like it's his decision. You have taught him to think like that. And that's actually a noble thing, but don't make it sound like it's completely his decision. Okay? Many times of what you do to teach children is basically coercion. Now, if it's done to their benefit, to their health, to their maturity, that's understandable, and you kind of have to. I mean, if children really were set to do whatever the hell they want, they probably wouldn't ever go to school. We have to force children to go to school sometimes. No matter how bad it is ultimately for their benefit. Okay, that's a bit debatable, but you get the point that I'm trying to say. But you're trying to make it say, oh, my son's the best son in the world. You're projecting, but you're also over-exaggerating. And maybe that's what parents do. But you're teaching him how to go on a date at 6 years old. No. If you made it sound like, oh, well, it's just mother-son time, and this is just something that we do and we have a good time, that's fine. The moment you say date, the moment you say training him how to date girls, the moment you say, oh, I've had bad relationships in the past and I don't want him to turn out like this, That's where I start having the problem. Check on the comments and see if anyone's responded to this. Yeah, you got to let kids be kids. Oh, that's a good point. Corvo, swap the genders, you get fathers taking their daughters to purity balls. And yeah, I'm never really liked the whole concept of purity balls either, but that's basically what you're getting there. That's a very good point. Thank you for that. Look, and maybe the kid will come out right on this, but a lot of people are like, oh, just stop hating, go somewhere else and project your negativity. And it's like, people have a right to voice their concerns at this. And this is creepy. This is very creepy because this woman is projecting her hangups, her extra baggage onto her child, and basically getting the man that she wants out of her child. Now, I don't think incest is actually happening here, but, it's just, it's basically emotional manipulation. Now, I do have to give credit to Suzanne Smith. She's a friend of mine. Go ahead and check out her channel. She's great. She's saying, be careful with the word abuse. We shouldn't be throwing that word around. And that's why I'm saying this is borderline abuse. But I kind of feel like she's not teaching her son, because if she was really about, equality and treating people right, she should offer to pay for half of the meal. I mean, yeah, it's her own money that she's basically given to the child, but to teach him that, for things to truly be fair on a date, if that's what you're really going to do, both of you should pay and not just one or the other. You're basically teaching him how to be a man from the 1960s and 70s rather than being a man in the modern age. Because what's going to happen when he deals with a feminist who gets offended by his actions? Because this is the sort of shit that feminists easily get offended by, and he's not going to know. You need to prepare him for the world that's going to happen and not the world you hope exists. But, Suzanne Smith, she said on my Twitter that, as long as she's teaching him about the bad women out there as well, then it's okay. Well, not that she said it was okay, but that would probably be a step in the right direction. And that would be true if she was, trying to prepare him for the bad elements out there with the good. But I don't think she's doing that. She's taking pride in the fact that, become Jonathan McIntosh. I don't know about that. That's kind of scary. I guess I've kind of discussed this one to death here, but this is the kind of scary shit that feminists are doing. They're training their child. They're training their children how to be the perfect man. But time and time again, women who get in abusive relationships often seek out these abusive relationships. They honestly do. They could easily get themselves out of these relationships. Now, yes, there's a lot of psychology in there when we especially talk about Stockholm Syndrome. But if they were honestly sincere about getting themselves out of these relationships and finding a decent man, they could do it. And oftentimes they don't want to. Even feminists themselves will subconsciously get themselves into these kind of relationships because that's what they want. I've had a lot of girls pass me up, a good, solid guy, for the bad boy because he's more exciting, and then get into an abusive relationship with the guy. And it's like, surprise, surprise, you picked wrong. And even then it's like, oh, you broke up with him? Hey, do you want to go out? Oh, you're still not interested in me after everything you went through? But this woman has taken it to a new level. instead of actually going out there and finding a good guy, then finding the abusive asshole she seems to be always hooking up with, she's projected her perfect fantasy of a man onto her son and making her son be that man. So I think that's going to do it for me today. As I mentioned, I'm probably not going to be doing any more videos for the rest of the month. I am taking a bus trip, not a trip. I am moving next Tuesday. I'm going to be on a bus on next Tuesday, the 19th, moving all of my stuff, or as much as I can, to Pennsylvania, and I'm staying there for a good year. So I'm not going to be doing any more videos this month. Hopefully I'll start again in February, but I at least wanted to get one more video in. Go ahead, and all the articles that I have done for today are in the list down below. You can also check out my Twitter account, ggmad_cat. Follow me on there, and I'll try to follow you back. Also, check out my book. You can download the first book free. It's called Dagar Legacy, about vampires, 14th century, spreading the bubonic plague. Interesting stuff. Find out why they're doing it. But if you like the book, you can go ahead and get the next book that comes directly after that in the story, and that's only $2.99. I also still have my Patreon up. If you like what I'm doing, consider leaving me a tip. Also, go ahead and hit this little like button up here if you like this. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button that you should see here if I wasn't logged into my account. Yes, Corvo, I am a writer. I have 5 books on Amazon right now, and I will have probably a few more after this year. My whole plan this year is to write as many more books as I can. Yes, the shekels. So anyways, that does it for me. Thank you, Corvo, for joining me today. It's always great to have someone to chat with on there. Corvo, go ahead and check out the link down below. That'll get you access to 2 of my books on Smashwords, which is the only place you can get that one book for free. Or just look up my name, Chris Vody, on Amazon, and you can find my other books on there. Anyways, I'm going to end this today. I look forward to seeing you all next month. And this is Mad Cat signing off.